My name is Spyros Economides, and I am the Deputy Director of the Hellenic Observatory here at the London School of Economics. And I'd like to say a few words of my own to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Hellenic Observatory. And in effect, I was part of the original team that tried to put the Hellenic Observatory on the institutional map. So in a sense, you could say I was present at the creation. More formally, it's been a great privilege of mine to have been involved with the Hellenic Observatory, either in my capacity as the Deputy Director or occasionally as Acting Director since 2002. So my association with the Observatory is a long one and a very fruitful one for me, and a very happy one indeed. Let me say a few things about the early challenges that were faced in terms of establishing the Hellenic Observatory and its accompanying Eleftherios Venizelos Chair of Contemporary Greek Studies. And those challenges were quite small. They were certainly not insurmountable, but they were both intellectual and practical in nature, and they came both from within the academic world of the institution in which the observatory is housed, the London School of Economics, and also from the home country, the mother country, as it were, Greece. Let me start with some of the issues that were raised when the Hellenic Observatory was proposed as an initiative within the LSE. As I said, small challenges, not insurmountable, but certainly ones that had to be met with intellectual rigor and some serious argumentation. The first challenge that was raised was whether the LSE should encourage regional studies. There was no real other part of the London School of Economics that engaged in regional studies. Of course, within intellectual disciplines such as anthropology and geography and international relations, there were regionalists, but there was nowhere else in the LSE that really dealt with regional studies, apart from one exception, and that was the European Institute. So the argument was that since the London School of Economics had a European Institute, which concentrated on the study of modern contemporary Europe, especially the Europe of the European communities and the European Union, there was no logical reason why there shouldn't be country-specific studies of a regional nature within this institution. And indeed, the follow-up challenge that had to be met was, why should this country be Greece? Why shouldn't it be a nominally more important or bigger country in the European Union? France, Germany, Italy, the United Kingdom. And the answer to that was, yes, indeed, why should there not be chairs and research centers dedicated to the study of these countries? But why not start with Greece? Why not start with a country which has specific concerns and represents specific issues and factions within the European Union? So in that respect, the intellectual challenge of regionalism and country-specific focus was met quite easily. Within the LSE, of course, there were other practical challenges that had to be resolved and were resolved rather easily. What kind of candidate would the LSE be looking for in terms of disciplinary background? Would we want somebody who would fit into the European Institute, or could it be somebody who could be housed intellectually in a different department, say economics or government or international relations, and also lead the Hellenic Observatory? And this was, of course, a challenge because various departments had to be consulted when the particulars for the initial job were drawn up. But in the end, this was a minor challenge because it became obvious that the European Institute, as an interdisciplinary institute, which encouraged debates across disciplinary boundaries, would be an easy home for a candidate who would be successful in getting the Eleftherios Venizelos chair, would create the observatory, and would slot in, irrespective of their subject interest, into this rather ecumenical home known as the European Institute. So the practical challenges within the LSE were met rather easily. The momentum of convincing the various institutional bodies within the LSE became rather easy. And so then we moved, in a sense, into the next stage of the challenges, which revolved around Greece itself and how to, quote unquote, sell the idea of the observatory to both private and public bodies and individuals in Greece, both intellectually and practically. The first major challenge, of course, was to convince many people in Greece that what we needed was a center for the study of contemporary Greece, for the study of politics and policy and economics and foreign affairs in the modern period beyond the Second World War. Greeks, both public and private, Greeks in terms of institutions, were very used to funding and promoting and supporting bodies that studied culture, language, and civilization, which gloried in the antiquities of Greece, the Byzantine period, the Greek language, literature, and so on and so forth. There wasn't much, by the way, of research interest in institutional forms in terms of contemporary Greece. And certainly those that existed were in Greece and not beyond Greece. There were no real centers of learning in the social sciences of the contemporary period outside of Greece. So in a sense, that particular challenge became the strong point of the argument. It doesn't exist, it should exist. What better place than the London School of Economics, which is a social science institution, to house such an experiment? So many people in Greece became quickly convinced that this was a very good idea, and an idea which should be supported. And of course, along with this intellectual challenge came a practical challenge of convincing people that this was a fund-worthy project. We needed to raise money from the private and public sector to be able to make the Hellenic Observatory a go, to make it a viable proposition in institutional terms. We needed to endow a chair and provide funds for the research unit around that particular chair. And here, the ace in the sleeve, of course, was the tremendous support which we received both from private individuals and public bodies, but more specifically from the extensive network of LSE alumni in Greece, who really took this project to heart and came forward and readily supported it, both financially where they could, and also in terms of proposing people who may be able to support the foundation of this observatory in practical terms. So the challenges were both practical and intellectual to start off with. They were met quite easily because they were not insurmountable. The friends of the LSE in Greece made the practical possibility and realization of the Hellenic Observatory immediate. And of course, within the LSE, once the observatory had taken off, there was a great degree of support for a small but immensely quickly growing and influential research unit, which covered an area of activity which had never been covered before. 25 years later, the Hellenic Observatory is more than just an established institution within the LSE and in the international field. There is no doubt that it is one of the, if not the premier center for the study of contemporary Greece outside Greece, and it is unique in that it provides a wide range of coverage on the contemporary social sciences in Greece, both in terms of an immense public outreach program, but also in the production of serious research, which has been very, very noteworthy and influential in public policy debates in Greece itself.